from organisation to organisation in terms of what they need from an NED, but you're all in this together. You have a shared interest in the success of the organisation, and you may differ as to what you feel the priorities are for achieving that success, but the board should expect a supportive challenge. You're there because of the skill set you have. You need to contribute on the basis of that skill set, and you need to ask the probing questions that other NEDs aren't asking, or maybe even aren't able to ask because they have a different skill set. So I would have thought being a team player, but being a team player that has some innovative thinking and knows how to express that in a supportive way.
My most unexpected contribution was being the contribution of a non-exec finance director when I wasn't actually appointed as one. I suppose at McDougall Johnson we were actually appointed to raise money for a company who were seeking to raise investment. So we, at the start of it, we thought this was going to be a typical process of going along, getting to know the company, getting to know their market, their products, their people, and then going to a number of private equity houses or syndicates and getting the funding moved on, and then letting the company grow, and ideally give them a bit of advice along the way. But we realised pretty early that the company wasn't quite ready in the position to get funding for a whole host of reasons. But we gave them that very straight advice. Instead of just trying to raise money for them, we decided that that the company just wasn't ready for it, and the best thing they could do was address a number of issues they had first to do that, and then we could then revisit the funding possibly 12, 18 months down the line. And I think that was the right advice at that point. They took it on board and decided that they didn't have the in-house skills to do a lot of these things that we were asking them to do. It's easy to be a consultant and lay a lot of advice but not actually have anyone to implement it. So they approached me to become a non-executive finance director to help them deliver a lot of this stuff. They had a board of directors, but only one or two commercially minded directors and two or three others who were not from a private sector background and who didn't really have that commercial experience. So we set about commercialising the board. We brought in a commercial chairman with a bit of commercial experience background. And we started, I suppose, restructuring the business and making it more attractive for investment. So we looked at a number of things. We looked at the market, we looked at our people, we looked at our products, we looked at how the teams interacted, we looked at our technology, and we just started, I suppose, commercialising this board, bringing the company a bit more up to date, how we looked internally at each other, how the business looked externally to potential investors. So we started working on all these things. And it was really quite interesting for me to be involved, I suppose, on the inside as opposed to the advisor role, where you're effectively saying you have to improve these things and here's a bit of advice, but actually having the responsibility to help the management team and the board deliver on them, and I suppose hold their feet to the fire in terms of getting there with it. And that became an unexpected role for me, as I didn't expect to become a non-executive director, and that was my first appointment actually. And then we went through this restructuring process. We built our board up, we built our team up, we looked at our product, we looked at our markets, and we went back for investment, and we got investment after about 18 months. We've been growing the business since then. I've stayed on board since then, thankfully. They've asked me to stay on board. I must have did something right along the way. And that was about 4 or 5 years ago. So we're growing the company as we're doing now. We're probably looking at another round of investing. So again, going through a very similar process is how do we look to potential investors? And being part of that board is great. I've now got a bit of history with it, which helps. I think it helps get investment, because we've now had a steady board for a number of years who have delivered in terms of what we said we would do with the initial investment. It's been good to come along with the journey of seeing how we've raised the money initially, how we've spent it wisely or unwisely, and what we've done with it to get us onto the next stage. And I think that's easier on the next level of investment because, as I said, I do have that bit of history there with the company, which I think is easier to sell to potential investors because I can show a straight path of exactly what we've delivered from what we said we would originally, and that's going to help us in the next round of investment. So unexpected to be a non-exec director full stop with the company, but certainly hopefully added a bit of value along the way by just using your years of experience and skills that you've got.
How can we as minority groups, and that's all minority groups, not just gender minority groups, change that? First thing is all together. It's not something that because women are in a minority, a gender minority, that they can change. It needs to be an all hands to the deck. We all need to want to change that, to want to have diverse and inclusive boards because we know it makes better commercial decisions. The other thing is that how do we change it? First of all, by applying. There are only ever going to be non-executive roles filled by men if only men apply for them. So, yep, get out there and get a CV sorted and start applying for the roles. The other thing that's in the way of those that do apply for them is actually knowing about roles. So visibility of, particularly of paid roles, but visibility of all roles is a particularly grey area when it comes to non-executives. For some reason, many organisations are reluctant to widen the net. It's a confusing thing as to why that is, but that is the case. So we need more people, more organisations to advertise their non-executive positions, to widen the net for applications, pass around if that Women on Boards is free to advertise on as a platform, and we have over 30,000 women that can apply, and we have advertised jobs for FTSE 50 organisations as well as for local ones. So those really are the main things that we need to be doing, and that's applying, getting out there, making ourselves visible, and getting others to advertise the role.
Each one of them will be looking for something slightly different. So rather than thinking about a top 3 to 5, I think it's maybe easiest to reflect on 3 skills areas, and I'll discuss each of these in turn. The first is thinking about your base skills, which every board will be looking for to some extent. So to give a quick example, basic understanding of finance, how to read a profit loss, how to read a balance sheet. The second element will be your unique selling points, your USPs. What can you specifically bring to a board that no one else can, or that you can bring in the best way? And then the third element is thinking about tailoring your skills to the very specific sector, or ideally the specific board, which you're going to be applying into. So let's look at each of those in a bit more detail. Well, in terms of base skills, there are lots of things that almost all boards will contend with, so we'll be looking to have some experience of on their board. Now, these will include things like having some financial experience, some exec management experience, areas like procurement and project management, Things like audit and risk, which most boards will deal with, or they'll have a subcommittee dealing with that they need to appoint board members to, and areas like remuneration, which most public and private boards at least have, and an increasing number of third sector. So think about those base skills. And if you need a bit of inspiration, then there are tools available. I'm chair of a charity called Changing the Chemistry, which is trying to support diverse talent onto boards. And we looked at over 100 job descriptions for boards, tried to collate that into a skills matrix. And that's something we published for our members as a tool. But if you're not interested in joining up to our network, then you can look on Google and start Googling board job descriptions and build up your own understanding of your sector and your area and what the common base skills being looked for. And these skills will always be good to nod ahead to in applications and interviews. The second thing then is your unique selling points. What can you specifically bring? And these can come from a variety of contexts. So it might be that career or professional experience that we tend to think about first. But equally, it could be other areas. It could be things like customer insight for the service users that organisation is supporting or selling to. It could be sector insight, that you've worked in a variety of different organisations across a sector, or what's widely seen as the leading organisation in the sector. It could be bringing lived experience. A large number of public sector boards and third sector boards will want people who actually have something in common with the lived experience of the people who use their service. So is that something you could sell? It could be international experience. It could be that you come from the disruptive end of a market, and that might be some energy to inject into a traditional heavyweight within the market, or it could be vice versa, a startup that's looking for some of that experience of a heritage player in the sector. So it's really worth thinking about what are the particular strengths you bring that others applying are not likely to be selling to that board, because all recruitment exercises have that element of competition. And then finally, it's really, really important to tailor how you present your skills to the specific sector, type of business, to the specific board, ideally, that you're applying for. So to give a couple of quick examples, in my day job, I manage a 4 million turnover, 60-person business. Now, to a lot of small charities, I might be able to pitch as having some quite credible, some quite relevant business experience that might be able to help them with some issues they're facing. But equally, if I'm applying to a large corporate that already has a couple of accountants on the board, it's going to look pretty naive to pitch that as one of the core skill sets I can bring. So I would play it much further down my CV. The same might go for age. In applying to a lot of the regulatory bodies I might be interested in, 41 is probably still pretty young, so I can maybe play that card slightly. That's not going to work if I'm applying to be on a tech startup where the board are all digital natives. So you really need to look at the board, the current members of it, what is already there, what's maybe duplicated already, what is missing that you can bring, and tailor your application on that basis. And that's perhaps much more important than always having a 3 to 5 that you're seeing as top in any application. So it's a great question. It is great to be thinking about what skills you can bring to a board, but maybe think about those 3 elements of your base skills, your unique selling points, and then how to really tailor it to the specific application.